Hello and welcome to a Random GM. I am your Random GM, Kenny, and today we are back in the wonderful world of Flabbergasted to make a protagonist or character. Now this is the sort of content that you like, and you like us covering some indie TTRPGs, then make sure to subscribe and stick around. Let's get straight into the character. Now, your first choice when making a protagonist in Flabbergast is choosing from one of the four archetypes, either the aristocrat, the help, the bohemian, or the well-to-do. Today I'm going to be making a aristocrat, but pick whichever one you want. The character making for them is very similar. One of the first things you need to decide is the name. So thinking of a name for your character. Depending on which archetype you pick, the names will be slightly different, but for an aristocrat, we need to think of a title first. Anything like Duke, Lord, and I think Lord is pretty simple, so I'm going to go with Lord today. There are examples in the book of name suggestions and family name suggestions, or like what I did a quick Google search and found some names that I liked. So for the name, I'm going to go with Lord Alistair Bramston. Quite impressive aristocrat name. And for this example as well, I'm going to pop in one of the pictures from Flabbergasted for the aristocrat, but you can find a Google picture, or if you're more artistically talented than me, perhaps you could draw your own character. Next, going down the list, we've got played by Kenny, nice easy one to pop in. Then you want to think about your character's relationship status. I'm just going to go with single, as my aristocrat I think is going to be pretty young. He's going to be young, dumb, and single. His title, as we've said before, is Lord. You don't have to put the Lord in the name, but I feel like I'm role-playing a bit already with Lord Alistair. He'd want people to call him Lord Alistair. He'd want people to know that he's a lord and that he should be respected. Now, there is a list of estates that you can pick in the book. I picked Hardwick Hall, so pick one that you want. Bear in mind, if you picked a different archetype, it will be slightly different. Bear in mind, all the character sheets are slightly different and none of the others have an estate, but if you're building an aristocrat, then pick one of the estates that it shows. So next I'm going to go with the age, and I'm thinking he's around 25. Nice and easy. Now in Flabbergasted there is a list of floors that you can pick from, and the one that I decided for Lord Alistair is party animal. You need to think about your character and what sort of floor you want them to have. But on my one, he's going to be a bit of a party animal. That's his weakness. He loves to party. And on this list, next is a nickname. Now, I thought about, for Alistair, Owl for short. And then I thought, what about Little Owl? I'm already starting to think of his background. And I'm starting to think that perhaps he's not the oldest aristocrat in the family. I'm thinking that perhaps he's second born. That will make it a lot more interesting, because a lot of people play aristocrats and they're the firstborn and they're going to inherit everything and they're the golden child. I wanted to do the child that isn't as loved by his parents. So Little Owl isn't as loved by his parents as he's secondborn. He's basically the backup if anything happened to his older brother. Next, you need to think of background. Like I said, for Lord Alistair, he's going to be secondborn. He is, I wouldn't say not as loved, but he's not the priority in the family. And perhaps he wants to prove something to his parents and he wants to try and make something of himself. So that's going to be his background. There you go. So I finished writing it now, and this is a good example for you, but there is example backgrounds in the book as well that you can take. Lord Alistair Bramston is the second born noble of the Bramston household. As second-born, he did not get the love and respect from his family and decided to forge his own path. Now this links neatly into his dilemma. Now, Little Owl he's young. He doesn't know how to work for a living, and forging his own path is difficult, and this makes him fall back into his old routine of wanting luxuries from his past life and wanting the support of his father or the money and other things that come with just being a second-born son who isn't trying to make his way in the world. So this is going to be his dilemma. This links into him being a party animal, because I think every time he has setbacks, he might fall back into drinking some alcohol and having a party instead of doing his dream of forging his own path. So I put, he moved into the city to prove something, but every day gets harder as he misses the luxuries of the life he once had. Okay, our character sheet is starting to look a bit full now, and like I've said in previous videos, Flabbergasted is mainly about the roleplay. And the reason I'm doing the roleplay stuff first, rather than going over to the traits and teaching you how to add in new things to the traits, I think once you get your character, you can then think about the traits and think which ones suit your character best. You want to optimize your character, of course, but at the same time, Lord Alistair isn't going to be very sharp. He's not going to have much wit to him, as he's a young, noble, young aristocrat who doesn't really know too much. So we will get over to the traits in a second, but let's fill in the last few bits. Mementos and description. Well, we've already got a bit of a description because I've got the picture here, so I think I'm just going to copy that. He's tall. I'm going to have him as like baby-faced because I want him to be more young than even the picture. Always wearing his hat to hide his thinning hair. So another great thing for RP, everyone else takes the hat off when they come inside and he doesn't. And then that will make people ask, well, why don't you take your hat off? And then you get that awkward, I don't know what to do. He doesn't know whether to take the hat off or not and show off his thinning hair. And he is well dressed at all times because he's an aristocrat. That's one of the things he knows very well. Mementos. So we need to think for him something that he's got with him that makes him him. I'm thinking a family ring, something to flash to people when I'm playing the game, something to help my director or game master. I could sort of show my ring and be like, do you know who I am? And I think that actually links to one of the scene cues that we'll get to in a minute that aristocrats can take. For memento, I'm going to go with a signet ring, and I'm going to say that it's of the family crest, which is 2 crossed baguettes, and we're going to say that his family isn't from old school aristocrats. Maybe he's the 4th generation and his great grandfather started making a bakery empire. It's just something a little bit fun. I like something a little bit fun and wacky, and I think that suits with Flabbergasted. So the 2 crossed baguettes is his family insignia or ring. I was even thinking of his dad being called the Bakery Titan or something. Okay, let's continue. Next, you want to fill out your readies. It tells you on the page how many readies each class or archetype gets. An aristocrat gets 80 readies. So that's just something he has. He has a little bit of his family money left, but I think he's going to be spending it quite quickly. The last thing to fill out on this sheet is the traits. So we need to think what we want to boost up for Lord Alistair. You get to fill in 5 more boxes. So 5 have already been filled out for you that come with the archetype, and then you get 5 more to fill in. You can't fill in more than 4 on your first session. So you might see that some of the boxes aren't filled in correctly, as in they're dotted lines. You can't go above 4 in each one. So my culture and etiquette can't go above 4. Now each archetype has a primary trait. For the aristocrat, it is culture and etiquette. And that actually suits Lord Bramston quite a lot, because he's going to have gone through all the schooling. He knows the culture and etiquette of being a aristocrat. So we're definitely going to give him the culture and etiquette he deserves, which will be a 4. I'm just going to paint these in. There you go. So that's 2 spent already. As I said previously, wit and sharp, I don't think will be much higher. I don't think he's very wise or intelligent, or he doesn't know any sort of street smart. And bear in mind, wit and sharp is the primary trait for the help. And I'm hoping that I can find someone to play with who will be a help, and they could be my butler, my chauffeur or something, and balance Lord Alistair Bramston out. Okay. I think he's got a little bit of bravado and persuasion. He's pretty young. He can persuade people. People maybe even feel sorry for him, and that's how he persuades them. But I think he's got a little bit of something to him. Obviously, being from noble stock, he's got something about him. So that's 3 spent. How creative and passionate is he? I guess he's got a little bit of creativity and passion to him. Bear in mind, he's trying to break the mold, and he's trying to leave his noble a house and he's trying to make something of himself. So I've got one more to spend. I'm definitely not putting it in wit and sharp. And I can't put any more in culture and etiquette. So that leaves bravado and persuasion and creativity and passion. So I've got to decide, what do I think Little Owl has got more of? And I think I'm going to go with bravado and persuasion. I want him to be a bit more trying to take a better role in his life and trying to engage with other socialites to increase his own status in society. So there we have it. That's the first page done. Like I said, most of it is roleplay based, and when you're getting into this mindset, you don't need to be just thinking about mechanics, you need to be thinking about the character as a whole. So let's move straight on to the aristocrat scene cues so that we can talk about those, and that's all you need to start your first protagonist in Flabbergasted. Let's go over to the scene cues. Okay, so every archetype has different scene cues. So if you picked a different archetype to aristocrat, then you're going to have a different list to me. But the main thing to remember is you just need to pick 4. So have a read of them all and then tick 4. You can tick where the little circle is at the beginning of the bullet point. And to start with, you will only have one use of each. So I would look down and pick the ones that you think is best for your character. For Lord Bramston or Little Owl, I'm thinking, let's get this. I'm just going to dot them in. Throwing a tantrum, I think could be him. I think throwing a tantrum, just looking at even just the titles, influence how I'm going to pick it even before I read them more. So have a look at the titles and then read more. I already know what some of these do, so I think I know what I want to pick for Little Owl. So we're going to go with throwing a tantrum, calling the staff, definitely. This is his bad habit, that he goes back into having to call in the staff every time that he can't do something. He has to call the staff for help. Perfect manners, I think that he would have perfect manners. Friends in high places, perhaps. Toast of the town, I really like only because toast and he's part of a bakery empire, but I don't think that's right. A surprising skill could be interesting. I feel like that's really open. Lucky break, that he's trying to get his lucky break from his father. So that seems quite interesting. You may notice that I'm picking mine based on the roleplay of the character, and I think that is the best way to do this in theme with the game. I think that's the ethos of Flabbergasted, but choose what you think. If you think one ability is really cool or really, really powerful, then you can go for that as well. I think he would be a perfect host. I think he's well-read. So I'm going to go with well-read because he's sheltered. And there's my 4 scene cues, and that's how you make a character in Flabbergasted, or a protagonist in Flabbergasted. If you would like me to cover the other 3, then let me know in the comments down below, and I can make another video going over the Bohemian, the well-to-do, and the staff. But it is very similar, it's just they have slightly different boxes to fill in, and slightly different scene cues, and of course they all start with different readies. I have been your random GM. Hopefully you have enjoyed yourself throughout this video, and if you have, then maybe consider sticking around and hitting that subscribe button, and of course if you like the video, there's a button for that. This has been how to create a protagonist in Flabbergasted, and I hope to see you in the next one.